the other way around. That the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government. And if there's one thing I get done for you as your next president, it will be to get in there and actually shut down that deep state in Washington, D.C. You cannot reform it. But if we want to get serious about actually shutting it down, I believe I'm the best person in this country for that job. We're not going to reform it. We're going to take 75% of the federal bureaucrats, fire them in my first term in office, most of that in the first year. Shut down agencies that shouldn't exist. FBI, ATF, CDC, U.S. Department of Education. We're going to get there and shut it down. That's how you revive the integrity of a constitutional republic. Is that because I'm against education? No, it's because I'm for education. Put $80 billion back in the pockets of states that can empower parents to determine where they send their kids to school. That's what we need to revive. That improves education in this country. Am I against federal law enforcement because I want to shut down the FBI? No. I want to shut down the FBI because I am for federal law enforcement of the actual law, rather than just make it up as we go along. 35,000 employees at the FBI. 20,000 of them are back office bureaucrats in the J. Edgar Hoover building. You can't make this stuff up. That's still what they call it. They're going home finding honest work in the private sector. Bye-bye, they're gone. 15,000 of them are cops, investigative agents on the front lines. We will move them to the U.S. Marshals, which has been far more effective in fighting child sex trafficking or the fentanyl epidemic. We will move them to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network to go after the future FTXs and SBFs of the world. So we'll at once improve law enforcement in this country, while also actually shutting down the corruption and the bureaucracy. Now, this is a basic idea. It's not too much to ask. Self-governance in this country. How do we get there? Zero-based budgeting. Don't start with last year's budget as the baseline, which is based on the prior year's budget before that, which is based on the year before's budget, all of which is broken, all of which is corrupt, and that's how you get a $34 trillion national debt. No, we will start with zero as our baseline and ask what's actually necessary. That's how you drain the swamp. That's how you fight the $34 trillion national debt crisis. I see young people in this room. You don't deserve to grow up with $200,000 of somebody else's debt on your shoulders that you did not sign up for. It's my job as your president to make sure that you don't, and we have a clear plan to do it. So that's the first idea of this country. First premise of this candidacy: the people we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government. And the second goal is that those people, including the U.S. president, owe a moral duty to the citizens of this nation. Now, in other words, I'm not going to use $200 billion of our taxpayer money to fork it over so some Ukrainian kleptocrat can buy a bigger house. That's where it's going today. Put an end to that war. Our moral obligation is to you, the citizens of this country. Just as I don't want you to grow up with $200,000 of somebody else's debt on your shoulders, I don't want you to have somebody else's gun over your shoulder fighting in some trench for a war that does not advance American interests. That ends on my watch. I will use our own military to secure our own southern border in this country and our northern border too. That's what it means to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. We will end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals in this country. It doesn't apply to them. Swear an oath to the Constitution, that's how I'll keep it. Anybody who's in this country illegally will be returned to their country of origin. My foreign policy is simple. It starts with our own homeland. Avoid World War III. Declare independence from communist China, from everything from our pharmaceuticals to our military equipment. That's what we need. That's the Declaration of Independence. And then use our own national defense spending to actually defend our own homeland right here in the United States. That shouldn't be a radical idea. And the fact that it is tells you everything you need to know about our broken politics in America. I'll tell you, I'm the only candidate in this race who can tell you certain things. I'll strip pharmaceutical companies of special liability exemptions for vaccines. That's crony capitalism, we put an end to it. Where there has been injury, there must be justice. I'm against the CO2 pipeline making its way across the other half of the state, using eminent domain to seize the land of innocent farmers. It's unconstitutional, it's wrong. That it's based on a climate change agenda, that absolutely is a hoax, because it has nothing to do with the climate. That Ronna McDaniel, the failed chairwoman of the RNC, needs to step down after 5 failed years of leadership. That I will pardon every peaceful January 6th protester on my first day in office, because that's the right thing to do for this country. Ask yourself why I'm the only candidate who can tell you these things. It's because every politician anymore is dancing to the tune of their biggest donor. It's a fact. Just as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, every politician is dancing to the tune of their donors. And in my case, that biggest donor is me. I don't report to them, I report to you, the citizens of this country, not another one. I'd rather speak the truth and lose some election than to win by playing some fake game of political snakes and ladders. But my bet is that's going to be the winning strategy. That's not up to me. That's up to you. Iowa goes first for a reason. There's no TV screens between us. There's no social media algorithms in the air. Actually, we didn't even do a fancy event production for this one. We usually have a lot of signs and microphones. Snowy day, that was hard for, a lot of those teams fell behind, but we show up. We've been to every one of these 99 counties more than twice at this point. We will have done over 390 events across the state just like this. That's more than every other candidate and campaign combined. My parents taught me, if you want to spell luck, how do you spell it? Good luck. They said you spell it W-O-R-K. That's how we're going to teach it to our kids as well. It's how I built my businesses. It's how we're running this campaign. It's how we're going to lead this country. But I'm asking you all to do your part. If you all come out on January 15th, and I'm told it's going to be a very cold day, if this didn't deter you, I don't think that cold weather is going to deter you all either. I'm going to ask you to do the right thing for our country. Every one of your voices and votes that day, it's like the equivalent of 1 million people in terms of the impact that it has on shaping who the president is. I'm asking for your vote that day. And I'm here to answer the questions you have, to make sure you select the right person for the job, because we don't have the luxury of time left anymore. If my kids are in high school before we get this right, I don't think we have a country left. If our interest payments on our national debt are the largest line item in our federal budget, I don't think we have a country left. That's about 5 years from now. So this isn't about 2028 or 2032. This is about now. I think we're in the middle of a war for the future of this country. I don't use that word lightly. It is a war between those who love this country and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for. It is a war between the permanent state and the everyday citizen. And I think now more than ever, we need a commander-in-chief who will lead us to victory in this war. That means it's going to take somebody from the outside, somebody who can't be corrupted. And I believe somebody with fresh legs, coming from the next generation to reach and lead the new generation of Americans. That's why I'm in this race. I want to open this up. Let's take some hard questions. I'm going to sit across the table from Xi Jinping in about 18 months, so I can handle the hard ones. I don't know what ground you covered with Apurva. She's going to be a heck of a first lady, setting an example for kids across this country. Throat surgeon by day, doing this full-time with me because this is about the life of our country that's at stake. And so she's saving lives every day, but we're in this together to hopefully save the life of our country. And so please open this up, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation. Sir.
Vivek, what would you do to address the criminal justice system that Gray County currently have? We continue to have more and more regulations, but on the other side, we don't enforce the laws that we have, and we let crime run rampant in many places in our country. And how do we fix that?
Yeah. So, by the way, you guys able to hear me in the back? Good enough? Thank you. So, we know how to solve violent crime in this country. We've done it before. There's two things far more effective than everything else, and they're achievable. More cops on the street who are able to do their job without fear of looking over their shoulder for being sued. I want to thank local law enforcement in this community, who's some of them are in here today. We need more of them able to actually do their job. That's number one. Number two is bring back the psychiatric and mental health institutions in this country. We haven't done that in a very long time. The number one source of mental health care right now is actually our prison system. And so you ought to stop something like what happened, God forbid, in a place like Perry in recent days. Address the root cause, that mental health epidemic. We close those psychiatric institutions. So as it relates to just addressing violent crime and the enforcement of the rule of law, those are two changes that would address that immediately. But there's something else going on at the federal level. The corrupt, I would call them corrupt, agencies like the FBI, when they themselves have abandoned their own commitment to the rule of law. Then you have people from the southern border to cities in this country who say, well, if the top law enforcement in this country and the politicians and the people who are in charge aren't following the laws, why on earth would I have to follow those same rules instead? So that's also a breakdown in the culture of the rule of law. Both of those are important to actually fight not only the epidemic of crime across this country, but to revive our culture in the rule of law as well. And I think it's going to take a commander-in-chief who stands for the rule of law to restore that. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, and the other part of that, though, too, is, we have district attorneys across this country that are being financed, their campaigns are being financed by George Soros.
And the super PACs. I mean, if this guy or anybody else like him has committed legal violations, I don't care how many dollars you have, how powerful you are, you will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. We have to have one standard of the rule of law, no matter how powerful, no matter what your last name is. But I think part of the problem is you also have, anybody here familiar with the term super PACs? Does that mean anything to you guys? Normally the campaign contribution limit in a presidential race is even as $3,300. It's a lot of money in a primary, but it's not enough to corrupt a politician. The real cancer is the people giving $33 million, tens of millions of dollars to the super PACs. End the super PACs. That's the cancer. It's happening in the Republican primary. We have to stand for put an end to it. And that solves the Soros problem right there. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sir.
Can you talk to us about how you got rich compared to how your opponents got rich?
Yeah, well, a lot of them haven't been transparent about that. That's part of the problem. I've challenged every one of my GOP primary opponents, particularly Nikki Haley, to release her tax returns. The irony is Nikki Haley was actually calling on Donald Trump to release his tax returns in 2016 incessantly. It was like a call of action. Now when it comes around the other way, has not released her tax returns. And I think we owe it to you to be transparent. My parents came to this country with no money in search of opportunity. I have founded multiple multi-billion-dollar companies. One of them is a biotech company that oversaw the development of 5 drugs that are FDA approved today. One of them is a life-saving therapy in kids. Another one is treating women's health conditions like endometriosis, uterine fibroids, other conditions that pharma had ignored. That's a multi-billion-dollar company today. I was the sole founder of it. I led it as CEO for 7 years. That's how I made the bulk of my wealth, that I'm able to declare independence from these mega donors for that reason. I also founded an asset management firm called Strive that competes directly with the likes of BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, 3 firms that control $24 trillion of our money. That's more money than the U.S. GDP. I built the leading anti-ESG competitor to those 3 firms. And that firm actually crossed over $1 billion in assets under management a year after launching its first fund. That's twice as fast as it took J.P. Morgan to get to the same place when it entered the same line of business. So I take on bureaucracies and I win. And now I'm taking on the biggest bureaucracy of all. It's the one in the federal government. How do most politicians are wealthy in this country at the federal level. You got Elizabeth Warren, this Democratic senator, is the one who claimed to be a Native American. She looks like she might be your sister. Are you Native American, sir? I don't think so. Yeah, well, helped her get ahead in her career. But the people who are going to lie about that are going to lie about everything else too. Her salary's public. You see what it is, a couple $100,000. Suddenly her net worth is $68 million. How does that happen? It's true for all of these guys across the board, Republican and Democrat alike. And I'm not picking on Nikki Haley just because she's in this race, but it's an embodiment of the same thing. Net worth of negative as a family while she leaves the UN, starts a military contracting firm, joins the board of Boeing, gives secretive speeches, and then because the military contracting firm makes more money by going to war. So these politicians in both parties, and Joe Biden, I mean, what do? Send $200 billion of our money to Ukraine when that same country is the one that paid $5 million to Hunter Biden, his son. It is corrupt. It's time to put an end to it. You should not be able to trade stocks if you're in Congress. You should, of individual stocks. Why? Why on earth? You should not be able to lobby the government for, I would say, at least 10 years until after you've left that government. Why? Why is that good for the American people? Give me an answer why it's good for the American people, for senators or congressmen or bureaucrats to be trading individual stocks, to be joining the board of a company if they've been a regulator of that same company. Why is this? I'll patiently wait. Why is this a good thing for the American people? I hear crickets. Same response I hear for why this carbon capture pipeline has anything to do with advancing the interests of Iowans, that they're using eminent domain in the state. Well, that's the product of, again, it comes back to lobbying, of course, which is the cancer on American politics. If you want that fixed, it's not going to come from somebody who grew up within that same system. It's going to come from somebody who comes from outside that system. And I want to say a word about this because you guys have a choice to make in about, 7 days at the Iowa caucus on January 15th. There's two outsiders, two America First candidates in this race. That's Donald Trump and myself. I respect Donald Trump, and I've respected him more than anybody else in this race. I've stood up, for those of you who've been following this race, at every step against those prosecutions. I've said that every Republican, including me, should remove our name from the Colorado or Maine ballots if they remove Donald Trump's name too, because that's how we protect our primary against left-wing election interference. But if you think they're going to let this man get anywhere near that White House, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. This system, these people, they were not going to let this man come close. They will stop at nothing. And now if you open your eyes, I mean nothing, to keep this man away. And our America First movement is bigger than one man. It doesn't belong to Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, to us, to we the people in this country. It didn't start in 2016. It started in 1776. We owe it to our founding fathers. We owe it to this country to make sure we have another 250 years still left in us. So do not fall for the trap they have laid. And it is a trap. They want to narrow this down to a two-horse race between Donald Trump and a puppet they can control. It's a puppet in the Republican Party. It's Nikki Haley, actually. They want to narrow this down to a two-horse race, eliminate Trump, and trot in their puppet. That's the game. Do not fall for their trick. You got the future of America First standing right here. We love Donald Trump because he got this fight started, but now it is our job to finish it, to take our America First agenda to the next level. And that's why I'm asking you for your vote on January 15th. I worry they are selling us the rope today that they're going to use to hang us tomorrow. It's up to us not to fall for it. Last time it was a man-made pandemic and a rigged election. This time they'll stop at nothing. And I do believe I'm going to be able to deliver victory in a way they don't have on me what they have on him. You want a general to lead us to victory in this war? Pick the one who is not yet wounded in that war. The one with fresh legs. We have that responsibility as being in a war in this country. Yes, we're going to win this war, but it's going to take an actual general with fresh legs from the next generation to lead us there. And that's why I'm asking for your vote to take our movement forward. Thank you.
You answered, or you made the point that I wanted to make.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you. Have you caucused before?
I actually yes, I caucused.
Good.
I
Good.
sat with the assembly today.
It's good. Thank you for being here then. Thank you.
This question's from my brother in California. He says, I feel like the Democrats in this country, especially in my state of California, hate the average working American. I can't stand can't stand them being in power, and I would love nothing more than you take over and get our country back on track. What can I do all the way out here in California to push your message forward so that more people join this band?
I appreciate that. One thing is spread the message where you are, especially in a place like California, where people actually are now more persuadable than they have been. You see what the streets of San Francisco look like. Well, people who might have thought one way before may be much more open to a different way of thinking now. As a pragmatic matter, if you actually want to tell is your friend?
It's my brother.
It's your brother, okay. So, right now, hey, what's his name? What's his name?
AJ.
AJ, what's up, man? Well, actually, if you're able, even in the next 7 days, to make some phone calls here for us in Iowa, I'm going to have your brother talk to our team here. That's what I'm asking everybody else in this room, too. It's not just coming to the Iowa caucus. Bring 10 people who aren't in this room and tell them what I've shared with you, too. Open their eyes to make sure that none of us fall into the trap they've laid for us. To understand that we actually have a candidate from the next generation who the mainstream media likes to silence. The mainstream media prefers to reject, but they don't get to choose the next president, not if we don't let them. It's not their decision, it's our decision. And so if he can help us even remotely here, while you're here, you guys tag team together, get a bunch of people to that Iowa caucus, I think we're going to deliver a shock. And if you want my prediction, I think we're going to win the Iowa caucus, actually. Because many of our supporters, I think some of them are in this room, are first-time caucus goers who have not been polled. Anybody, just by show of hands here, how many of you in this room have been polled in a formal poll that's been run? I literally do not see one hand up in this room. Can I ask you a question? Just out of candor, whatever it is. I'm grateful to you being here. How many of you are inclined to caucus for me on January 15th? Well, good number of you, a lot more than zero. For the rest of you, let me just ask by show of hands, how many of you are weighing or evaluating another candidate or are yet undecided on the caucus on January 15th? That's fair, too. The polls are wrong. The mainstream media is trying to stuff one narrative down your throat. I think it is going to take us to behave independently. We've become a nation of sheep, actually. That's what I worry about. And a nation of sheep breeds a government of wolves, actually. So we can point to the government. And look, we have a lot to fix up there. Fix the deep state, fix the connection to private companies who are doing through the back door what the government couldn't through the front door. All of that. But we also have to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what is it that makes us want to bend the knee? And I think that that's up to us. We can complain about the mainstream media. We don't have to swallow what they're force-feeding us. That's what I'm asking you to do. Think independently. Take the time to come to that Iowa caucus on January 15th. Make the right decision for this country. That's how we're going to move this forward.
You talk about the media and National Public Radio, NPR seems to have a bias. What would you do for them since they receive some federal money?
Well, I think the use of federal money to engage in one-sided partisanship is an abandonment of their purpose, and we put an end to it. When I'm talking about zero-based budgeting, I really mean zero-based budgeting. We're starting with zero as the baseline and asking what's actually necessary. So I apply a high standard to that. Anybody in this room know who Javier Milei is in Argentina? I've heard of him. I'm going to make him look like a moderate by the time my first 3 months are in office, okay? Agencies shut down. 75% of the number of federal bureaucrats will be out of that bureaucracy by the time I'm done with my first term. That's a seismic change. The people who we elect to run the government will once again be the ones who run the government, rather than those handing out willy-nilly to their preferred media partners the narratives that they want to advance. Great question, sir. I appreciate it. It's effectively state media. That's what it is.
You mentioned your desire to expand nuclear energy. Where's the money to do that?
Yes. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is a 3-letter government agency that is hostile to nuclear energy. I'm going to shut it down. Move those people to other places in the Department of Energy. They have effectively stopped the construction of new nuclear power plants in this country over the last 40 years. Before the NRC, the average time to build a new nuclear power plant was about 3 to 5 years, about 4 to 5 years in this country. It's about same as what it is in Japan. In France, it's about 5 to 8 years. In the United States, it's now literally, I'm not making this up, 25 to 40 years. It's basically stalled the creation of any new nuclear power plants at all. The irony is that's in the name of safety, right? So what happens is the nuclear power plants that are running are Gen 2, older, in the U.S. Gen 2 is less safe than Gen 3 or Gen 4. The only country that has a Gen 4 nuclear reactor is actually China. And the irony here is the very people in the U.S. who are most opposed to fossil fuels are also the ones who are most opposed to nuclear energy. Doesn't make sense unless you see what's going on. You got to open your eyes. The climate agenda has nothing to do with the climate. It has to do with what they call global equity. Fancy way of saying letting China catch up to the United States. So we put an end to that on my watch. Unlock actual nuclear energy production. Fusion is a big part of the future as well. The U.S. is behind on that, but doesn't need to stay that way. And by the end of my first term, we'll have 3 major Gen 4 nuclear power reactors under construction, underway in the United States of America. The only thing holding it back right now is the NRC. I'm going to shut it down and actually unlock private sector innovation in that area. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Earlier in your speech, you mentioned like shutting down the Department of Education. I'm an ed major right now, so could you just expand on what that looks like for you and why?
Sure. Yeah. So the education is administered locally. The question's about shutting down the Department of Education. Education's normally administered locally in this country. We don't need a federal department using our own taxpayer dollars to then tell those localities what to do, which is what's happening. The origin of the Department of Education was they wanted southern states not to siphon money away from predominantly black school districts to white ones. That was the concern. But today it's morphed into something altogether. They say you don't get that money unless you're adopting certain gender or racial ideologies, tilting the scales to 4-year college education over 2-year vocational programs or 1-year vocational degrees. It's totally abandoned its original purpose. So I say that $80 billion, restore it back to the states and to the people. Put more money in the pockets of parents who are able to choose where they send their kids to school. For a tiny fraction of the Department of Education's budget, we'll be able to put 3 armed security guards in every school across this country to, again, make sure that something like what happened in Perry doesn't happen again. Thank you. And so that's a far better use of money than the Department of Ed. There's a small piece of the Department of Education relating to vocational training. We'll move that to the Department of Labor where it belongs. Just like with the FBI, just like with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. These aren't slogans for me. We have clear plans for how to deliver on this. But it's going to take a president with the authority and the spine to actually run the executive branch of the United States. And that's what I'm bringing to the table.
Do you think that it's important for, because education is, run by localities, like you said. Do you think it's important for that department to exist so that there's like a basis across the entire country as to what we're all learning, opposed to learning different things?
It's a good question. Even the Republican Party, some used to favor something called Common Core. The problem with doing that from this federal, central, top-down perspective is that it always lends itself to capture. I think we're actually going to have more of that commonality if we're actually generating it bottom up. I think most of us in this country share the same basic founding values in common. I favor laws at the state level that would require every high school senior who graduates from high school to be able to pass and have to pass the same civics test that every immigrant has to pass in order to become a voting citizen of this country. I don't think that's too much to ask. You've got to know something about a country to have skin in the game. We already require that of immigrants. Great. We should. We should also require it of people who grow up in this country. So I do favor that revival of civic pride and civic education and common values, but it doesn't come top down. What that's become is gender ideologies that are foisted as some sort of common identity, which at all is not what actually binds us together. And so I think that doing this bottom up and allowing parents to choose where they send their kids to school, but reviving that commonality of purpose as citizens, that's how we're going to actually do this. It's a great question, but history teaches us that central bureaucracy is never going to be the way we get that right.
I also have a second question.
Okay.
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 In one of your previous speeches, you mentioned the south side of Chicago, just briefly and in passing. Do you have a plan for that, or like how does your presidency have a positive effect
Yeah.
on areas like the South Side of Chicago?
I think the people who came there, I spent a full day there. I think they were surprised by my visit. I was surprised by it too. I think we found a lot of common ground, actually. I haven't been in a room, it was maybe had this many people in it, that was more in favor of my policy to militarize the southern border than that room in the south side of Chicago. 95% black, 150% Democrat, the places where, at least based on how they count their ballots. I think that, I think that that's, the truth is, they say Republican candidates shouldn't go there. I disagree. They're turning South Shore High School into an encampment for migrants. Their high school is being converted, where those migrants, the cost of that, $7,000 per migrant per month, when people in that city are rightly asking, what the heck about me? I'm an American sitting right here. They're against the war in Ukraine, every bit as much as many, at least in our Republican Party, or many in our Republican Party are not. So I think our America First movement can transcend the traditional partisan boundaries. And I think I'm doing that in a way that no other candidate will. This cannot be another 50.1 election. This has to be a moral mandate, a landslide. And a landslide minus some shenanigans is still going to be a decisive victory. I think the people in that room agree with me on some basic common sense ideas for fixing elections in this country. Single day voting on election day as a national holiday with paper ballots, government issued ID to match the voter file, and English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. That's not too much to ask. That shouldn't be controversial. That's common sense. So these transcend black versus white or Democrat versus Republican. These are American ideals that we fought a revolution to secure in this country. I went through the 10 truths in that room, 10 truths of my campaign. Simple things that I think we should have never been controversial 5 to 10 years ago. God is real. There are two genders. Never thought I'd have to say that one, actually. Most people in that room agree with me on that. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. We had some disagreement about that one. But 9 out of 10 is not bad. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family isn't a bad word. It's the greatest form of governance known to mankind. Talk about that one for a second. We're paying single mothers more not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house. We're paying for single-parent households. Kids born in single-parent households are 8 times more likely to end up in prison, 10 times more likely not to graduate from high school. And yet we're paying for exactly that result. I will stop using our taxpayer money to pay people to do the exact opposite of what's best for them. More money not to have that man in the house than to have a man in the house. More money not to repay your student loans than to repay your student loans. More money not to go to work than to go to work. That's not compassion, that's cruelty. You're not aiding somebody just by subsidizing them sitting in their parents' basement, playing video games, smoking pot. That's driving an epidemic of loneliness, of anxiety, of depression in this country. Fix that root cause. That's how you fix that national debt problem, grow this economy. And yes, is some of that what I'm going to say? Some people are going to find a little bit of that controversial here or there, sure. But this is how we're going to unite this country, is standing for truth. We're not going to unite this country by showing up in the middle, whatever that means, and compromising. We're going to unite this country by standing for the radical ideas that unite all of us as Americans. That you get to speak your mind openly as long as I get to in return. That the people we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government. That we believe in the rule of law, that nations have borders. I think most of us in this country actually share those ideals in common. 80% of us. I think 20% on the other side are younger than me who never may have learned those ideals in the first place. We're going to bring them along too. If you make me your nominee, it's my responsibility to deliver you a landslide, a moral mandate, like what Ronald Reagan delivered in 1980. That's what's my job to deliver you. That's why I'm in this race. That's how we're going to reunite this country. We're skating on thin ice right now, but it does not have to stay that way. If we have time for one more question, I'm going to take the last one. I'll give you the final word, sir.
Why is our Republican Party so divided? When you take a look at the Democrats, I will have to say the one thing that they do really well is they're always united together. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of outliers.
Yeah.
They always fall in line. How can we make the Republican Party more united?
The short answer is we have failed to define what we even stand for, actually. And what do you stand for? You have a Republican Party's foreign policy. Most of them look more similar to Joe Biden's foreign policy than what I'm telling you. I want actually people to prioritize American interests first. So I don't care. The way I look at this is the Republican Party is a blank slate right now. It's a mess. Ronna McDaniel, the failed chairwoman, is somehow tripling her pay over the period in which we have 5 failed elections. So it's a broken party. Let's ask a deeper question of how we reunite this country, or at least 80% of this country. As I said, we're in the middle of a war in this country. But that fringe minority on the other side, it's not 50%. That's easily 20% or less. And I think the way we're going to reunite this country is by standing for those 1776 ideals. It's a 1776 moment in this country right now. Thomas Jefferson, he was 33 years old. How old are you, man? 21. Okay, I was going to say, you looked a little older. You had the mustache, everything going. Thought he might be your age. He's in between you and me. Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote that Declaration of Independence. He invented the swivel chair while he was at it, actually. It's funny, that founding spirit. Benjamin Franklin, he invented the Franklin stove, the bifocal spectacle, the lightning rod. You have, what's that?
The rocking chair.
Yes, you know this. There's a young man here. I like this. Yeah, exactly. How old are you?
9.
9 years old. You're right about that. Robert Livingston invented he's also signed the Declaration of Independence, a component to the steamship. These are our founding fathers. There was something in the water back then in 1776 we could use in our water today. That inner animal spirit, it has been domesticated, it has been tamed in this country by this new culture that penalizes excellence and celebrates victimhood. When we rallied behind the cry to make America great again, we didn't just hunger for a single man. We hungered for that unapologetic pursuit of excellence, that 1776 spirit in this country. And we live in a 1776 moment today. If George Washington were in this room right now, what would he tell us? We don't have to be this nation in decline. We don't have to be at the end of the ancient Roman Empire. I think the truth is, as a nation right now, we're really just a little young, actually. Going through our own version of our adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. That's the way I'd like to see it. That's the way George Washington would see it if he were here today. That we have another 250 years and then some still left. That we owe a duty to this country. Not to fall into the traps they've laid that might bring us to our end this year. I'm not the guy who's going to walk in here and tell you it's morning in America. I love Ronald Reagan. I don't think Ronald Reagan would tell you that, though, if he were here today. It's not morning in America, but it can be. I'm not going to tell you, as a young person right now, the American dream is alive and well. Right now, it's not. It's alive and hanging on for life support. That's where we are. But it can be. If you all do your part in about a week, next Monday, that's what I'm asking you for. I'm asking you to support me at the Iowa caucus. If you all do your part, I promise you, my family and I, we will do ours to make sure that our best days are actually still ahead of us. To make sure that we will look our kids in the eye and mean it when we tell them that you get ahead in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication. And that you know what? You are free to speak your minds at every step of the way. That is the American dream. Ask about the Republican Party. That is what we are running to. And with your help, That is what we will revive to save this great country. Thank you for coming today, guys. God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mel. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. Yeah, let's get a picture. We can take some pictures. Come on up. Thank you.
I have to say, I'm here because this guy wanted to see all of the candidates.
Amazing. Where do you live?
And right here in town, and I appreciate everything that you said. You're beating out the other ones, that's for sure. And I don't know that I would have gone to see all
That's
of them.
awesome.
if
I'm
it
proud of
wasn't
you,
for
young
him.
man. We're doing it for your generation. I'm impressed you knew that. And
Did he also make the lightning bolt?
yeah, he did lightning rod. Yeah, you're right. But the fact that he's coming here with this spirit gives us hope, and that's what we have to
But
cultivate
I
in
like
this
the
country.
civics being back into school. The fact that I, as a parent, have to do that is disheartening in this country.
Thank you.
But
Patrick, do you, Caroline, have the cards? Caucus cards? Yep. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. If you don't mind filling out one of those cards
Yeah,
for us.
absolutely.
And we'll tell you where to
Great
go. I appreciate
meeting
your
you.
support of
Yes.
the caucus. Thank
Yep.
you. I appreciate it. Have you done it before?
no, I haven't.
Got to come this
And
time.
he's gonna come with.
Oh, I appreciate you, man. Good to see you, man. What's your name, brother?
Anthony.
How old are you?
Torres. I'm 24.
I love the next generation, guys. First time caucus goers? It's awesome, guys. You got to come out this time.
Check it out. Appreciate you.
Thank you, man. If you bring other young people to that caucus,
God bless you,
we're
man.
going to deliver a
God bless.
shock, man. I think we're going to do this thing. Love your hat. That's what it's going to take, man. Revive our patriotism in this country.
doing hard work.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Caroline? Hey, guys. Yeah, these guys. And this man, ma'am, what was your name? Ma'am, what was your name? What was your, and your son?
Ivan.
I'm very proud of you, man. I'm looking for big things from you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. What's your name, sir?
Mike.
Mike, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. What's your name, ma'am?
Thank you. Adrian.
Adrian. Have you done the caucus before?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
We appreciate your support
Yes.
on January 15th.
Thank you.
We're doing it for these guys.
Yeah,
Their generation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very
I
encouraging.
appreciate that. There's a lot more to say on your question, but we scratched the surface.
Yeah, there is.
Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you coming, Oscar.
Thank you. It's good to be back. It's like our third time here.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the
we like
first
it.
time I've been here. To
Oh,
see
good.
it.
Good. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. Thank you.
That took some time.
I appreciate it, man. Good to see you. How old are you?
I am 20. I just
20,
turned
similar age. Yeah. We'd love to have you at the caucus on January 15th. Yeah, if you will. It's a cool experience. We take it. Thank you. What's your name, man?
Travis.
Travis. What I tell young people is you don't have to agree with 100% of what I say.
I don't.
That's fair. That's my sense. But what I'll tell you is I'll give you a commitment. I'll give you what I believe 100% of the time. And as long as you get to speak your mind freely, I get to in return. That's this country. And that's how we're going to get it back. And so if you care about uniting the country, that's how it's going to happen. And so, I think you probably got to agree with a good number of the things that I say to want to support me. But you don't have to agree with everything.
When I asked you about like your plan for or what your presidency would look like for South Chicago, so I'm from Chicago actually, and you like brought back your plans for the border.
Because it's affecting Chicago.
How does that exactly?
I mean, they're shutting down one of the high schools there. Chicago's a
That's
border
South-
city.
But that's just South Shore, and that's just.
Yeah, it's because they declared it to be a sanctuary city. And so I think that this idea that the policies that are helping this country are somehow helping the people in the inner city, actually it's the other way around. They're dumping them in places that are actually leaving. Americans who you don't like to see suffer are actually suffering. That's actually what's happening. And I think it's wrong and it's unjust. So, yes, every major city today is a border city. And I think it makes a difference. I want to be respectful of the people here, so I'm going to do that. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, good to see you, man.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then
I appreciate it.
About the phone calls, I would love to help out.
Oh, we would
Who
love
can I-
that.
who can I
Hey,
reach out
his
to?
brother was the one who's going to help us with phone calls, too. We would love that in California. What was his?
I'm an Iowa.
Yeah, but his brother's in California, just like
Yeah.
you. But he's going to, but if you can help us out, if you fill one of these out, they'll tell you.
Yeah, we're just going to go together. Just
Yeah.
to speed up the line.
Hey, good to see you.
Britain.
Good to see you, man.
Bad.
Thank you.
Still getting this out of you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, let me just take these guys. Let me just take these guys here, and then we'll do that. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Good to see you, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. What's your name, brother?
Jonathan Price.
Thank you.
Have you done the caucus before?
No, I haven't.
I would appreciate having your vote at the Iowa caucus.
Okay.
It's a big opportunity. Caroline will give you one of his cards, and we'll tell you where to come. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Vivek, I got to say, when I saw you on the first debate,
Yeah.
I was blown away.
Thank you, man.
You said like a lot of the things that were in my head and probably
Awesome,
the
man.
minds of a lot of other people. And before that debate, I was, I didn't know really who you were and
Fair enough.
what you stood for. And after that debate, that you kind of won me over.
Awesome, man.
But I'm a first-time caucus goer. We moved here just recently.
Awesome.
So
hey, what's your name?
Alex.
You together? Good to meet you, Alex. It's a huge opportunity.
Yep.
Caucus and bring as many people as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to do this.
Yep. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
You got a picture?
Yep. Yeah, sure. We'll take a picture. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thanks
I
so
appreciate
much.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you. Hey, thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Heard you at Winter Set.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
You might-
Good to be back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And my son-in-law is from India too.
Oh, really?
So
Well, we'd appreciate your vote at the caucus. Have you done it before?
sure.
You've done the caucus? Okay, good. Well, I'd appreciate your support there. Thank you. Remind me your name again, sir?
Paul.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hey, it's good to see you.
Love your speech.
Thank
Love
you.
your
I
speech.
appreciate that, man.
You hit a lot of points that I was interested in. I love
Means a lot.
hearing
What's,
what you said.
what's your name?
My name's Roger.
You done the caucus before?
I have not done the caucus, and I'm actually not from Iowa.
Where are you
I'm originally Texas, but I live in Minnesota.
Thank you for coming
So
all the way to be here, man. I appreciate
You've
you
earned
too.
a vote in Minnesota.
Well, I'm new to Iowa, so I was
You're
just
new to
watching
Iowa.
videos on how to do the
Oh,
caucus
awesome.
earlier today.
We can help you. We can
I was talking to
easily
the
help you do
gal.
that.
Can
Absolutely.
I get my husband get a picture?
Yes,
of that?
absolutely. Hey.
Thank you so much.
But I
We
really,
love that.
It was so nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
What's your name?
Rebecca.
Rebecca?
Yes.
What's your name, sir?
Ryan.
Ryan.
Both my parents
We-
are back in California listening. They're like, Rain Slater Hale, you have
Oh,
to
I
go
love
see
this.
him.
But the Iowa caucus is like the equivalent of 1 million people
Yeah.
in your vote.
I'm excited.
Did Caroline give you one of our?
Yes, we did.
If you fill that out, we'll tell you exactly what you need to
Yes.
do.
We'll
get right back.
Make it easy
Thank
for you.
you.
Thank you,
Drive
guys.
safely.
Thank you. Spread the message. And
Yes.
how old is this one?
4.
She's 4. I've got a 4-year-old. I got a soon-to-be 4-year-old. So
Yes.
looks familiar. Hi. How you doing? What's your name?
Georgia Anderson.
Georgia. Good to see you.
Good to meet you. I think my husband wanted a picture with
Oh, where's he? Oh, right here. Okay, good. Let's do it. Come here. Let's get a picture, guys.
Hey,
thank you for being
I
here.
appreciate you so much.
Thank
God
you, my
bless
man.
you.
I appreciate
I'm
that.
thankful for you and your family for what
Thank
you're
you.
doing.
Pray for our
it's
family.
a
We'd be
huge.
grateful.
I am.
Thank
I
you.
am, and I'm going to support you. I'm hopefully going to speak for you. At the
I would love that.
caucus, okay?
As precinct captain, and otherwise, that'd be awesome.
All right.
We would welcome that. I could say you're a good speaker. Would you like one as well? Caroline will take. She can take one.
No problem. Do you want to hop in?
Yeah, come on, honey.
And then do you want a caucus card as well? Sure.
It'd be great.
Appreciated your wife so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, right here.
Hope that went well
Thanks.
before she got here.
Yeah, it was awesome.
She did
It was
well. Okay,
awesome.
without a microphone.
I'm a family nurse practitioner.
Oh, you
so
are. We need more
I
of
care
them.
a lot about health
We need
care
more.
and those
We
issues.
share that
so
in
it was
common.
awesome.
You spread the message in this
thank you.
community and bring a lot of them
Yeah,
out to the caucus.
I want you to know that a lot of us on the right are switching to you right now. I think
Thank
I have a lot of friends locally and in the area that are saying, you know what, this guy needs our support. He's saying everything we've all been saying forever. Like,
thank you.
We need to support you. So we appreciate you. Thank you for standing up against all this garbage.
Thank you.
And we believe
If you
in what
drive
you're
that
saying.
wave right at the very end
Okay.
here, I think
Yeah,
we're going to
we'll-
deliver a shock.
we'll do our best,
We're going to
okay?
deliver a shock. I
All
think
right.
it's coming,
I hope so.
actually. Thank
Yeah.
you. Tell me your name again, sir?
Shane
Shane.
Anderson.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
nice
you.
to meet you.
Take care. Thank you. Hi. Thank you all for being here.
Hey, we do have a quick question for you.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think about abortion?
Well, I think I'm pro-life. That's where I'm at. I think we need to do a better job of being pro-life, which means actually put more sexual responsibility for men in the law. So if a woman brings a child to term, she should be able to make the man responsible for her and the child, financially speaking, if it's confirmed by a genetic paternity test. Now the men have to then on the front end actually say, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to have to have the same responsibility that we otherwise demand of women. That's the way we win on this issue without compromising on what I see are foundational pro-life principles. So that's where I'm at on it. And I think that that's the way we don't lose in the general, but without compromising. And it's the right thing to do anyway. It's not men's rights versus women's rights. It's about human rights. My faith teaches me that. Science teaches me that. My wife, I don't know if she talked about this or not, she became pro-life when she went to medical school and saw an abortion for the first time. You see the hands, the feet, etc. And I think that both faith and science lead me to the same place on that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Good deal.
I don't know if that's where you're at on the issue. Okay. Well, we have to stand for life.
I was in the restroom.
Oh, I said that we're going to stand for life without compromising. But the way we're actually going to win on the issue is by actually being more pro-life than we are. The law that I favor, among others, is sexual responsibility for men codified in the law. If a woman brings a child to term, she can make the man the responsible party financially, both for her and the child. That forces the man then to take responsibility on the front end, and it negates the argument of the left, which says it's about women's rights versus men's rights. No, and now we're all in this together. And I think that even if you talk to most friends who may disagree with you, the case of a pregnant woman who was assaulted, the unborn child died as a result. You find me one person in this country who says that that criminal shouldn't be punished for that death. Everybody agrees in the basic pro-life instincts. But we need to walk the walk when it comes to being pro-life. Adoption, childcare, and sexual responsibility for men codified in the law. That's what I favor. So this doesn't have to be a losing electoral issue. But I'm not going to compromise on principle. Otherwise, there's no point in going through these motions. That's where I'm at on it. So,
Correct.
did you disagree with me on that?
Yes.
Okay. Where?
So, I'm basically, this is where I have a hard time because I'm basically pro-life. Morally, I don't believe it's correct.
Good.
In that. However, I also don't believe that it's the right of the government.
Of the federal government.
Yeah, well, to tell a woman what she has to do with her body. And I think it's a very...
Yeah.
And
The issue is we're not doing enough for those women is my point. Crisis pregnancy care. Just saying you're on your own without actually putting the responsibility on the man. No, the man needs to be actually responsible for making the decision that women shouldn't bear. So when I say being more pro-life, I mean actually walking the walk. To actually stand with the woman. To give her the support that she needs. But that is a life. And respecting that at the state level. This isn't a federal issue. It's at the state level. But I'm sharing with you what my views are. That's where I'm at. And I think that's also one of the things is this shouldn't be by the federal government. It should be driven by the states.
I don't want my tax dollars, my money, going to somebody that aborts their baby.
And they are today.
I know.
It's going to Planned Parenthood. So defunding Planned Parenthood is happening right out of the gate when I get into office.
Yes.
I've said that since day one. That's easy because that's waste. That's also part of zero-based budgeting. Remember I said that? Right. We're going to start at zero and ask what's necessary. Is that necessary? Absolutely not. Right. So that's where the zero-based budgeting actually gets a lot of the rot out of there. So hopefully that addresses your question.
I see where you stand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Well, look, and my view on this is, if you agree with me on the basic rules of the road, that's enough to support me because no one's going to agree with me on 100% of things, but I will tell you what I believe 100% of the time. And that's different than any other politician because I'm not a politician. And that's how we get this country back. And so I would appreciate your support in the Iowa caucus. If I win the Iowa caucus, I'm your president. And if I'm your president, I think we're going to reunite this country. I do believe that. Take our agenda to the next level. And so you guys, if you're able to do your part, I'm going to do mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Yeah. We'll actually, Caroline will give you, if you give us, they will tell you exactly. We will tell you exactly where you need to go, actually, if you fill one of these out. So, thank you.
Is there a chance I can get a photo with you?
Yeah, we'll love it, guys. Yep. Okay.
I just got back with deployment 10 months of the Ukraine border, hauling hundreds of billions of dollars worth of explosives, and none of it's on paper. I'm just wondering what you're going to do to fix that.
Get it out for the United States of America. I mean, I think that we're given that. We're loading that up. And I think that that's use of our taxpayer money to fund corruption under the table in Ukraine.
Exactly.
And it needs to end. They're using it to buy bigger houses, a lot of those kleptocrats, too. So it means to stand for the right. Thank you for asking, sir. I appreciate it. Let's do that. Yep, thank you.
Will you take it?